Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. So as you're logging in, please let us know where you're from in the chat. There's a chat tab on the bottom below. You can see little chat bubbles if you just want to let us know where you're tuning in. In that chat, you can also double check that the blue button reads all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your message. Okay, for those who are just popping in, as I see that we have some newer members from when we first opened, we're going to begin in about 3 minutes. First, again, welcome. If you can let us know, we're interested to know where you are tuning in and calling in from. Let us know in the chat below. Also, make sure in the chat that you double check that the blue button reads all panelists and attendees. That way we can see the messages are sent to everyone. But we'll begin in about 3 minutes. Okay, hi everyone again. Welcome. There's so many of you from all over. This is great. I'm looking forward to starting this presentation with all of you in about 1 minute and 20 seconds. If you haven't done so yet, we are interested to know where you're calling in and listening in from. So please, in the chat, let us know where you're from. Welcome everyone. And also double check that in the chat that the blue button says all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your message. We'll start in just a minute. Hi, so I'm going to get started with today's webinar on remote teaching for early learners. This webinar is where we're going to explore this roadmap of supporting your transition from in the classroom face-to-face to moving to that remote online setting. Before I get started, I want to introduce myself. My name is Michelle, and I want to introduce my colleague, Erin. We're both learning leaders here with Eduscape, which is a company that challenges educators to rethink learning by designing a solution that inspires inquiry, creativity, and collaboration. Before we get started with today's content, let's review the agenda. We're going to start by introducing you to Ms. Shrem. Ms. Shrem is going to be a teacher who we're going to see her perspective on everything that's happening. Then we're going to go into our communication and community and how important that role is, especially when transitioning from in the classroom to being more at home. Next, we'll go into adjusting classroom material and how we can see what we're using in the classroom and how we can change that to now being used at home. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Our learner outcomes for today are: learn how to organize your virtual classroom, discover new norms to ensure the efficiency of instruction, explore the best in-class educational apps that are free, and review the instructional design for remote teaching. Before we get started, let me introduce you to some of the logistics of today's webinar. So first, in the tab below, there's a Q&A tab. Please put any questions that you have throughout this entire webinar in the Q&A, and we'll be moderating that to help answer your questions. Also, please know that this webinar is going to be recorded. You will receive actually a copy of this webinar, the video, about 48 hours after today. Also note that anything that we have in the chat, any comments, that won't be included in the video. It's just the video presentation. Now let's talk about how you can navigate here on Zoom. Just so you know that the mic and video are automatically turned off for you, but for any future Zoom calls you may have, they're found in the bottom left. Again, I cannot stress that Q&A tab more. Please put all questions you have in there. We will be using the chat feature on and off throughout the presentation to share ideas with each other. So please make sure you find that. And if you haven't done so already, please let us know from where in the chat you're from. Just take a few minutes to figure out and look at all these tabs on your screen and get yourself oriented to where they are. If you have any issues at all during the presentation and you need some troubleshooting, try these techniques. By pressing Control-Alt-5 on your keyboard, you can refresh the browser if your viewing is disrupted for any reason. Also, make sure that your computer speakers or whatever you're tuning in from, the speakers are not muted and the volume is turned up to make sure you can hear us. Also, if there's any troubleshooting, especially within the video that you need help with throughout the presentation, there is a troubleshooting guide available. You can click on that by clicking on the information button and then help. There's also closed captioning available during this presentation if you need it. We're going to get started by explaining Ms. Shrem and Ms. Shrem's background. So this is Ms. Shrem. She is a first grade teacher, and recently her school, like many of our schools, was shut down due to the COVID-19 virus and is converting to online learning. And she wonders so many things on how to make sure that she can ensure the best practices for her students now at home. She wonders, how do I continue to provide learning experiences for my students? How do I guide parents in their child's at-home education? And how will I continue to connect and have a classroom community with my students? We're going to help Ms. Shrem today and help her learn some effective strategies as she transitions from that in-classroom face-to-face setting to online. We're going to start by taking a look at that community and communications aspect. This is now where she's wondering, she's already built a community with her family, her parents and the guardians in her room, and especially with her students. And she already has communication plans in place. But that shouldn't be super overwhelming for you. Think about it. You already have the best practice in mind. You know your students. You know what they like. You know the best ways to teach them. You know what's going to engage them at this point in the year. You also know their families. You know what's going to work best in their household. So with this said, consider what are some things that the teacher need to ask the parents and guardians. Also, what should we take into consideration from guardian to teacher? What is that parents need to know from the teacher? And then the last one, teacher to student. What should the teacher be thinking about when they're moving onto this online platform for their student? Let's take a look at that teacher to guardian one to start. So when you're thinking of teacher to guardian, we're going to break this down into a few grade levels, because there's many of you that are with us today that may teach preschoolers, and there's some of you who are teaching older kids like third graders. And some of these considerations are definitely geared towards different ages. For that pre-K to kindergarten group, it's important to ask the parents to follow a daily schedule. Consider coming up with a mock schedule for your parents. This can mean that the parents do a little learning in the morning, then they have a break for play, then maybe lunch, then some reading time, and then more play, and then maybe some structured learning. Parents don't know how to schedule or break up that day for the kids, so try and consider what the day might need to look like for them, or giving them ideas on how to do so. Also, ask parents to demonstrate all the different literacy, language, and math skills that they use in their daily lives. For example, we use math all the time when we're cooking. Consider asking parents to cook with their kids to help promote those math and literacy skills. Practice reading with the kid, or doing different activities that they wouldn't think of, even just matching socks or making the bed that would help them in their daily life. For our older kids, that grade 1 through 3, they are a little bit more independent at this point. They're working on that independence, if not. So ask parents to consider creating a separate workspace for these kids. That means maybe that all the structured learning, the worksheets they work on, or if they need to be on the computer to learn and practice this one site, that's all taking place at one space. And then maybe the more unstructured learning, like playing a math game on a tablet, can be like in the living room where it's a little bit less structured. That way the student knows where the structured learning needs to happen compared to the unstructured learning. Also ask parents to help model how to work responsibly online. Our pre-K kindergartners may not get that online time by themselves yet and not understand how to use it, so they're going to rely on their parents. But our older kids may get that time in the classroom already. And now you're not there as the teacher to guide them, so ask the parents to practice that good digital citizenship skills with them, so they know you don't share your password, or you don't share your email and password to the people. And the practicing, you don't copy and paste information that you may find online and count that as your completed work. But for all of our grades, there's a lot we need to take in consideration: the communication aspect. You need to consider asking parents to communicate their challenges early. If they need to let you know what they can and cannot do for their student. Also, tell them that they need to check the online classroom or the site or the blog that you're using to share information with them. This will help them limit all questions to you, and also let them know if they're checking that online classroom site, how to check it and how often it's going to be updated, so they know what your expectations are of them. Now consider what the parents are going through. We know as teachers right now, this is a huge time for you, for a huge transition. And I can't even imagine what you may feel. But it's the same thing for the guardians. They are maybe working at home and now having to play more of that educator role for their students. So the biggest thing you can do for the guardians is playing that support role, letting them know that you're here for them and that you're going to support them in any way they need. Now, there's a few other things you may want to consider. The best one is fewer clicks and resources, the better. They may not know how to navigate your class site and setup. They may not want long lists of resources are going to be overwhelming for them, and they may not want to go through them all. Remember that the fewer clicks and the fewer resources will make their lives easier, and also the students. Consider picking a few that you know are going to be a good resources or good online tools for them, and providing the parents with those. Parents also want you to set those clear expectations for them. They want you to tell them what you expect so they know how to meet those expectations. Also, consider what the day is going to be like at these students' home. The flexibility is going to be a big key here. If parents are working from home and now also having to take that leadership role in their child's education, they may not be able to help them post activities online and go in and out of constant meetings. Consider having parents post their students' work once a day. Also, if you're going to do online video chats or doing video calls with the kids, make sure it's a time that can be flexible and you're not holding the students responsible to meeting that time if the parent can't help them sign online. Also know that the parents are going to need that time to adjust, so you don't want to throw a full day schedule at them and so much content that the parent's overwhelmed and can't figure out how to reach those goals. And the most important one has to be that communication. The best way to make sure that you're going to help make sure the students are learning and comfortable in the situation is communicating clearly with the parents that what's happening and opening that line for the parents so they can communicate with you their needs as well. Now, as educators, we know that school is that safe place for students, and we provide them with that social and emotional support daily. Now, how can we do that when they're home? This is a consideration many of us are probably taking into place. Just know that the daily routines that you may do at home that provide that, do at school, that provide that emotional support, you can still do online. Instead of saying, complimenting their haircut in school, you can do the same as it looks online overall. But keep some of those best practices that you're already doing by trying a few things like this. Check in with them individually. If your school has permission, if you have permission from your school and also your state legislation allows, video call with them. Or even just a regular phone call to let them know that you're here for them, to provide them not just the educational support, the emotional support. Also take into a big consideration, they miss their friends. It doesn't matter if they're the preschoolers where they're learning how to build friends, or they're those third graders. They're not getting that same communication and that same social building that they get when they're in school, when they're home. Try and provide some places online where they can discuss and have conversations with their friends. Those video calls or discussion boards can play a huge role in helping them during this time. You can also promote that classroom community by giving them collaborative work with each other. For example, you can take a book, a favorite class book of yours, and all the students, it could be a book you've read to them before, and have them practice making adaptations of the book. As they're making the adaptations, they can either use online tools, they can come up with adaptations with just regular paper and crayon. And what the parents can do is take pictures of what they created, and you can post it on the classroom site, their work, where they can then share it with their peers and make one giant class book. Also consider their behavior. At the top of the screen, we did include a bit.ly behavior link with a sample behavior chart. This is just a sample of what you may want to think about using or offering parents. You may have a student who acts one way in your classroom, but they may act another way at home, and they may not be motivated at home to complete work or do work because of that. So consider how you can help manage that behavior. Also, try integrating apps like Microsoft Whiteboard or Jamboard into your classroom community. These, both whiteboard and Jamboard, provide a collaboration technique for students where they can share their thoughts and ideas and collaborate with each other. You're going to see this link often at the top of the screen, the bit.ly that says sites, app, and integrations. If you type the bit.ly link in exactly how you see it on the screen, it'll bring you to all the apps and the integrations that we're talking about throughout the presentation. But again, you have to type it as exactly as you see it because it is case, letter, and spelling sensitive. So now Ms. Shrem doesn't feel as bad. She understands that there's this balance between that community and that communication pieces with her students and parents. But now she's interested in how does she assess their learning? How does she know? So this is a consideration that many educators are thinking about currently, and there's multiple forms of assessments out there. It also depends on what Ms. Shrem is using as her online learning platform and her school's policy on, are they teaching new material or are they reinforcing what they've learned this year? Consider using projects. Projects can be done at home, offline, and then the students can either present them online through a video chat or a web chat like Zoom or other platforms itself, or they can use projects, take pictures of their project or make online posters. Also, think about what online learning platform your school is using. There's multiple platforms out there, and many of them like Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams offer assessment tools inside those integrations. Also, think about what are the resources that are already available for you from your school. Your school may buy a license for different sites where students have logins. And if they do, consider sending those home and using that as a way to measure their data. Also, start with the non-negotiable material. What is the most important material for you to review and cover for the remainder of this year? That should be where you start. So now Ms. Shrem feels a little bit better. She understands that making the guardians of her students feel supported is a big part of the classroom community and can help ease their parent and the student transition at home. But now she's wondering how to adjust her daily schedule at home to help in the classroom to help her students at home. So we're going to take a look at the physical schedule in Ms. Shrem's classroom. So Ms. Shrem already knows that she's not going to cover all of this at home, and she shouldn't expect parents to cover all of this material. It's about grouping what's important and giving them options. So this is what she may currently do, but we're going to talk about how she can supply some ideas to parents about how to accomplish not all of this during a day, but some of it at a day. Ms. Shrem's day starts with morning meeting, and her morning meeting is a place where students greet each other, they count how many days they've been in school, they graph the weather, and they also review the calendar. Consider moving that morning greeting where they greet each other online. This is a great time where if you have permission from your school to do a video chat with your whole class, do so. Bring them all in on a meeting, have them greet each other, have them sing songs together, practice skills together for that time. Also, if they don't have permission, consider uploading pictures. This can be a place where they can upload a picture of them saying hi or a picture of them holding a sign up. They greet each other in different ways. The days in school can be now days at home. On your online platform, you can always practice counting or have some sort of marker up there that shows how many days you've been doing learning at home. Graphing weather at home can now be reporting the weather online. Students can go home, well, they are home. When they're home, they can look out their window, they can measure the temperature, they can look at what the sky is doing, and then record that online either through a poll, a question, or a discussion. Students may actually be interested to know that their friend's house may have one weather and theirs is completely different. And this would be a great learning opportunity for them to know how weather is even different, even across a smaller town. And then calendar skills. This is our practice sequencing, or a great place for students to practice sequencing. Consider providing parents with these different song options that practice the days of the week and the months of the year. If they can't get those maybe YouTube videos or other platforms and give them those songs, also consider practicing sequencing with pictures. Ask students to draw pictures or take pictures of what happens every day for them or just a day for them. And then putting those pictures and explaining them in order. After morning reading is read aloud. This is where Ms. Shrem gets to read with her students all together and build literacy skills by asking them questions about what they're reading. Consider YouTube channels like Story Online that read stories to students. Or record yourself reading, but be very cautious of the copyright laws. There are regulations on what you can read and share online. For example, Scholastic has allowed all teachers to read their books, video record it, and then post it online for the remainder of the school year. However, starting in June, they asked teachers to take those videos down. So just be cautious of what you are recording. This is also a great time to ask guardians to read with their student and practice that language literacy skills with them. If you ask a guardian to read with a student, you can always provide them with questions to have during that read aloud. And last but not least, consider using Microsoft Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader gives students an opportunity to actually have information read to them, whether it's a book or something they found online, and it can even be from other online content areas. For example, using Microsoft Edge, which is a browsing platform, Immersive Reader can read the context to the students. After read aloud is Daily 5. Daily 5 is where Ms. Shrem's kids practice English, language, arts, and reading skills. So during this time, she meets with her in small groups with students who are reading books with her. They're practicing reading with a friend. They're responding to a writing prompt. They're practicing spelling and sight words, and they're also playing literacy games. I don't know about you, but when I was teaching, centers and stations like this were key in my day because I was able to practice multiple skills. Instead of practicing all these skills in one sitting, give students choice and option about how you're going to present it. Again, it's all about doing what is most important, those non-negotiable material first. Students can practice reading with a teacher on video call if you have permission. The teacher can share a book on the screen and she can read along with the student. They could also buddy read either by video calling each other or chatting with each other if they can, or they can buddy read even with their pet at home. Give a writing prompt online. They can either type it up or handwrite it and then share it with their peers. You can create a daily journal about what's happening every day. Provide sites like Story Online to students so they can listen to books online. And also word works and games. There's online games that are available for students to practice their different vocabulary words, sight words, spelling words. Often, there's also another site that's called Sketchnote, and students using Sketchnote can practice drawing out their vocabulary words. Even though Ms. Shrem doesn't teach different specials throughout the day, like art, music, and physical education, she still wants to make sure students get this sort of supplement and know different activities that can provide them with these skills. Art is a great online and offline tool. There's a few options that you can consider here as the educator. Consider posting pictures or videos of yourself doing arts and crafts so the students can mimic them at home. Also, you can find different art. You can supply students with the resource AutoDraw, and autodraw.com gives students the opportunity to draw either on the computer, on a tablet of some sort, and they can actually save a URL code from what they draw, and they can share it up in the online classroom so their friends can see it as well. Music is a great time for students to try different videos and apps. Consider sharing different YouTube channels like the Jack Hartman one with students. These have great songs that students can sing and dance with, and they're educational. But also, if you use the Chrome Music Lab, students can learn how to make and integrate music into what they're doing. One of the best ones is that physical education. Going outside will help split up the day for the kids, or even just offering them that playtime. Letting parents know it's okay to have playtime integrated in throughout their day is important, because they do learn those collaboration and those engagement skills, and even some fine motor skills depending on what they're playing with. If they can't play outside, consider asking parents to use Go Noodle so they can have different fun dances and stretches and workouts and all these different things that they can do on there, all through song. Also, I know it's not as special, but they're not going on field trips right now because, well, we're practicing social distancing and staying inside. Virtual field trips are a great opportunity, though, for students to visit museums during this time when they're empty. Even aquariums are taking part of this, and zoos, and giving these virtual field trips to students so they can see what the animals are, so they can see dinosaur bones. So consider giving your students access to one of these field trips. The next one is DARE. After she goes through all of this, she uses DARE time, so dropping everything and reading to help her students transition and get with a nice book and relax. Now, some of our younger kids, like our pre-K, K kids, they may not be reading on their own yet, but this is a great time for them to look at picture books and describe what they see in the pictures and give their own story and their own thought process to it. Consider for maybe those older kids though, assigning 15 minutes every night where they read. And then as they're reading, they can practice a reading log. So we have a link there on the screen for the reading log if you would like an idea of how to use one. But what they could do with these reading logs is either practice a paper version like the one on the screen, or they can use other online versions that they have out there where you use it on your classroom. And what they can do is write down what they're reading, talk about the number of pages, and turn it into that way. And then they also can discuss what they're reading with their peers by maybe doing a book share during a morning meeting. This is another great time to also think about using Microsoft Immersive Reader, especially for our little guys who are struggling with reading, or those who need more help when reading. Immersive Reader can help them break apart the words and help them decode as they're going through a story. Next is math. Math is a great opportunity for kids to practice all different stations again with the teacher. So in Ms. Shrem's classroom, she has math games. She has individual help with the teacher. She has math fact fluency, and she practices old math skills. Again, it's all about the practice at this point. So consider doing an activity with your students like bingo, where every single day when they're doing the bingo, they complete one math activity. So it's not everything that they would normally complete when they're in school, but one activity. So for example, maybe on Monday, they play math computer games for 15 minutes. But then on Tuesday, they can use an app called Math Shelf, where the teachers actually can get some of that recorded data about how their students are doing and what they're learning. Then on Wednesday, they can practice math facts by creating math games. On Thursday, they can be making and completing puzzles either online or offline. And then Friday, they can play a math dice game. If that another option besides playing bingo is a math scavenger hunt. We all know that math is used in our daily lives, so giving this students an opportunity to find how that math is used is great during this time. They can figure out how are they using math inside. Maybe they're using math if they're helping cook. Maybe they're using math as they are helping fold laundry or clean. Maybe how is math used outside? Also consider, can they help make groups of 10 of their toys? Can they find two things that match? If they're outside, consider how many leaves can they find that all look the same and comparing them. Can they do, as they walk, how many steps does it take from one end to the driveway to the next? So going through some very simple routines, but that helps them realize that math is used just about everywhere. Then science and social studies in Ms. Shrem's class is alternating, and they cover such a wide variety of topics and information. What Ms. Shrem can do for science is do science projects. She can do a few things here where she either does science projects with them online, where she guides them through an experiment and she films herself doing something, or she can consider assigning them all a project where they can do some more individual research where she supplies them with books online or resources online to read. Once they have a project and they completed it, then the students can even create an online poster. They can create online presentations or take pictures of what they made and share it with their family and their friends online. For social studies, consider adding stories and online information and references and videos about different historical events into that English language arts time. This is a great time for students where when you're practicing those reading skills or assigning reading skills for them to practice, learn with that social studies lens. Let's check back in with Ms. Shrem and see how she feels about all of this. So she says, this is a great time where there are many ways to continue student learning and provide them with support using an online classroom. So let's see what she's learned. She can adjust her daily schedule to offer her students a similar routine at home by providing them with online and offline resources. She can also make parents part of the online classroom community by considering their needs and by communicating what her expectations are. Next is she can consider the different formats of assessment, such as projects. She can also supply her students with a safe space to meet their social and emotional needs by checking in with them daily. So we're going to take the rest of this, a good chunk of the session now, and we're going to start answering some of the questions that you have. So at this time, I know that some of you about asking for English language learners. So I'm going to answer this one question about you're interested. So Vincent's interested in the math bingo and how this could look for a majority of students who are English language learners. So what's great is think about what your school has as resources to start. If you can't upload anything, you can always think about creating a sheet, emailing it out to parents in the language that's best for them. Google Translate and Microsoft Translate are two great integrations where you can type in information and the student can read it in their native language during this time. Also, they can type things back to you using the same Translate. If you wanted to, even with that math bingo, you want to maybe find a site or material for them that is in that language or can be used using Google or Microsoft Translate so they can understand it, because not all of them are going to have that access to that ENL help or English language help like they do in school. If your students can't have access to all online resources, this is the time where you want to get creative. Think outside the box and provide parents and with a different option of how to go about doing this at home. So maybe if you're dealing with younger kids, use and they want them to practice comparing different sizes of things, have them go around outside and run around to find different size objects and placing them in order. That helps build sequencing. It helps practice differentiation between things, but also grouping like things they can do. Go and find 10 things outside and then group like things together. So put leaves together, put rocks together. Another question is, how can this be used in the physical education classroom? So this is important. I know that, speaking from my own perspective, I've taught many grades, early education, all the way through high school. School sometimes is the only time that they are actually being physically active in the classroom. You want providing them with workouts or simple little things that they can do that will help them tremendously. So sites like Go Noodle do offer workouts for their students. Also consider using sending parents different activities, like going on family walks or having a kid practice different exercise routines in between each subject. So if there's a higher level kid, such as 1st through 3rd grade, they know that they're going to need that brain break, and physical education can be that brain break for them. And that could be practicing how to dance or different things like that. Any more? Oh, I do want to introduce another Erin Homlin. We have the Erins with us. Erin Homlin also has great knowledge about the pre-K realm, the K kids. So if you have any questions about that, please let us know.
Michelle, was there anything that got asked earlier that you were waiting for me to join? I don't have full access to the chat history.
Not that I would have to ask Erin Saylor.
Okay.
So many of us. Just so you know, for in that webinar the integration and apps link that we sent out, there's websites for virtual field trips. Just so you know that if you go to have a Microsoft School, or if you have access to Skype, they offer something called Skype in the Classroom. And Skype in the Classroom does offer free virtual field trips to pretty much anywhere in the world, such as museums, to historical sites all over. And those would be great references that, to consider during this time as well. That bit.ly resource I can put back on the screen, or if one of the Erins can jump into the chat, that would be a great opportunity for you to look through the different resources there and look what we have now. Again, we will have a video that will be sent out within 48 hours, so you will be able to see this again and see that bit.ly link in there.
So there was a question about how can you support students who are English language learners and may not be able to have access to resources or can't upload things to Google Classroom or Seesaw? In particular, referencing math. This might not directly answer that question because it seems specific to those math resources, but I would share that if you are looking for math for English language learners in the pre-K, K1, or any students who are significantly behind in their math progress, the math shelf, and I can drop it in the chat as well, application is being offered free to the end of the year. It's a tablet application. They can access it on a tablet if they have a tablet at home. And what students can do is independently, and I've watched many pre-K students go through this independently. All they need to do is learn how to log in the first time. And it's very easy for the parents to log in because it'd just be the parent's email. Students would independently play through thousands of math games, and what it does is it assesses students at their math level. So they'll take a quick pre-assessment. They have no idea they're even doing a pre-assessment. It is just games. They will be put on they'll have a math shelf with different games that are at their level. And what you can do, setting it up for if you're the teacher setting it up for your classroom, you would have access to their data and see how they're progressing. So what it does is it covers math skills from prerequisite to first grade math skills. So that way, by the time they're done the Math Shelf program, they'll be on a first grade math level. So that could be really useful for pre-K, K, first graders, or just any other students who might be significantly behind in math that need to master or practice those foundational math skills. We'll put the website in. It's called Math Shelf, like a bookshelf, but Math Shelf. The data on the progress is amazing. Students really make a lot of gains through this, and it's an application I highly would support just because they are, well, how great it is, but also they can work on it independently. So if students only have access to a tablet, they don't, and they're younger and their parents are looking for something to do, they can do Math Shelf. Math Shelf could serve as your sole math instruction as well. It's not necessarily supplemental. It can be, would cover all the topics that you would be covering as well, because it's aiming to get students at a first grade level. It also comes with a e-learning tutorial as well that takes about 20 minutes to complete, pretty short. And it's free, like I said, till the end of the year. So if you're, again, math, I would highly do that one. And the reason I thought of it about English language learners is you have the ability to have it translated to Spanish as well. So it'll, when there's times when the game orally or presents stuff orally, it will be in Spanish as well as any text on the screen as well.
Thank you, Erin. Yeah.
It is only for tablets. It's only for tablets right now. So for Math Shelf, if it's a tablet one, I would recommend that. It wouldn't work for cell phones. But I'll go ahead, Michelle.
And like Erin said, that is geared more towards that younger end. Unless you have that remedial students who need that more to build their math skills that are older, it's not recommended for third grade or second grade at all. Just to give you that.
It would be their performance level. So if you have a student who performs on a kindergarten level or a first grade or a pre-K level, even though they're not in that grade, that would be perfectly fine for them.
Okay. If you have any more Math Shelf questions, please let us know in the chat just so we can have. Again, they cannot use it on a laptop. It is tablet only. Some of you are also asking for other platform suggestions. First, again, consider what your school already uses or has. If your school already has a platform, such as Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, use that and then can move on from there and figuring out what it offers. Some of you, if you're looking for different integrations or apps, like Math Shelf, in that sheet, and I can even pull it up for you quickly. So I shared with you on the screen a bit.ly link that went to the sites and integrations. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see it in a second. But in here, I give a quick reference of all the different sites that we talked about, and I can bring you through those quickly just so you can see what they are, and I'll explain them. So for math, Erin gave a great description of Math Shelf, so I'm going to skip over that. Math Playground is another fun, free math site for students where they can practice math skills in a fun platform. I know that some teachers get concerned with older kids when it comes to these sites and them thinking they're babyish. When I taught 5th grade, my 5th graders loved Math Playground and they didn't even realize they were practicing math skills. Also, Khan Academy practices all different types of questions and has done tons of interactive videos you can use for math. In science, there's plenty of other resources such as National Geographic for Kids that offers videos, games, and quizzes and fun resources on a variety of subjects for them, as well as what is the best science show for kids is this YouTube channel that shows science projects and talks about different science subjects. Cognitium is geared more towards that kindergarten through grade 5, so not really recommended for that pre-K group, but it's self-guided classroom instruction. Fun ELA sites can include different songs that we include. We included Jack Hartman that we discussed, Story Online, the sketchnoting that we talked about. Another one that we didn't reference was Stuff Duck Moose Reading. This is a free apps that you can download onto iOS or Fire or Android, and it can give actually reports back to the teacher on the kid's progress, and it's all aligned with Common Core state standards. There's different things that you can easily find about days of the weeks, months of the year, using Go Noodle to get kids active, Auto Draw, and Music Lab that we talked about. We talked about a few different integrations in here, such the Google and Microsoft Translate. Jamboard and Whiteboard are these apps where kids do get, and teachers can write right on the screen with their mouse or with a touch screen and share it that way. We also then discussed that immersive reader section so you can see what they are doing. You can break down helping kids who need that support. Either they are emerging readers and they cannot read on their own yet, or they struggle with reading. And then we did give those few references about those online virtual trips right here as well. That was in the presentation. I can drop this link again into the chat for all of you. But I would like to continue ask if you have any more questions, please let us know.
Can I just jump in? Someone made an excellent point about screen time, especially for younger students and needing to be cognizant. Just to talk about it in context of the math shelf one real quick, because I forgot to mention that. Erin and I have worked with many states that have screen time laws for younger students specifically, where they cannot play, for example, like more than 30 minutes a week. So in the research behind Math Shelf, it recommends playing that students only need 10 minutes 2 times a week, so a total of 20 minutes using that program to make gains. But even with how many other screens they're going to be engaging with during remote learning, even if they played for 5 minutes, they would be getting something out of it, and it would be directly related to where they're at in their math level. And it also has the built-in timer as well, so parents can help keep track of how long students have played as well. So I just want to throw it out there, but I really appreciate that question, because as we're transitioning to remote learning, you have to be very purposeful and mindful of what you're asking students to engage in to make sure they're going to get the most out of it, since they can only be on the screen for so long. So thank you for asking that.
This is Erin Homland. Holly is asking a question about how to connect with parents for schools who's not using Google Classroom for K through 3. So it's tricky, right? Like the off the top of my head, the first thing is, if you have email address for all of your parents, use the email, and then have a list. When I was teaching kindergarten, I was having to send home homework, even though I didn't think anyway, so it was a list of tasks. Find all of the things that are red in your house. Draw a picture of something that's in your bedroom. Go outside and find 3 rocks that are big, bigger, and biggest, or something like that. So it's just little activities. And so if you send that in an email, and maybe there's 10 things and people have to complete 5 of them, or, you know, anything that you can do to give some choice and some agency and not make people feel like they're overwhelmed. And if all of those, if they can just take pictures or video of those tasks and then reply to you in that email, that's a low-key technical way to get that information and still have your students involved. One of the other,
okay.
That's okay.
I was going to say, that weekly schedule that Michelle modeled with the example teacher, that can, like Erin's saying, being typed in email or just a Word document or any type of document and attached as well. So as long as you're communicating with parents that every Monday you're going to get your weekly schedule, as long as they know expectations and it's fairly routine and it's in the same format, so they don't have to put any guesswork every time they open it, they know exactly what they're looking for. That would be incredibly effective without the use of Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams or anything like that.
Yeah, setting that norm, not just with the students on what they're going to be doing at home, but also with the parents, is going to be key during this time. So parents understand what you are expecting them to do and how they can find content and information to help their child. If anyone else has any great questions, this is a good time. We are almost out of time though, so I do want to wrap up all the rest of the questions that you may have in the next 5 minutes or so.
And keep sharing all those great resources that you're sharing with each other as well in that chat.
Yes, thank you. Because even if isn't a resource that we shared, you guys, this is the best way to reach out right now and communicate with each other and share what you are looking for, especially since we have a wide variety of teachers and grades with us today. I do see one about mirroring images for students. There's a comment, if you have issues, if you want to practice writing letters or numbers with your students, there are online sites where they can practice tracing them. If they have a touch screen tablet at home, they can trace with their finger, or if they use a stylus pen, they can practice as if it was a real pen. Thanks for sharing the numbers.
And there was questions or comments about reaching families that are majoritively Spanish speaking as well. I know Google Translate, and for example, isn't the perfect translation, but it's better to attempt to translate than not at all. So if you could just type something into a document, that weekly schedule for parents, translate it in the languages that would be applicable, and add that to your email as an attachment, just those 3 simple documents, and parents can choose the one that is most comfortable for them. That would be supporting that communication line. And on how to continue teaching Spanish. Any resources out there anybody knows of on teaching languages? That might be something different than the question that was asked earlier.
I don't know about teaching languages online. That's something, if anyone who's a part of the attendees knows about, this would be a great place. If not, Erin Homling had that great recommendation of even just coming up with those videos. You as the teacher, creating videos of yourself, whether it's practicing a language, showing a science lab, or doing a craft, this gives that students, they feel connected to you and allows them to see what you're doing.
And that's the same for reading as well. So if you have reading exercises that you would typically read to students out of a book to help them practice their decoding and their fluency, for example, and their spelling, record yourself speaking out those exercises with little pauses in between, where parents could just play them and students can repeat them out as well.
I know some of you are asking about where the questions and all this is being posted. It's great that you've been using the Zoom webinar chat. Just a reminder that this is recorded, this presentation, and will be sent out to you in about 48 hours. The chat, however, is not going to be part of that. The chat isn't in the video when we set it out, just the video itself, so you'll get to see the presentation again. Before we wrap up, I'm going to share one last thing with you. We want to thank you. Of course, we want you to know we're here for you. If you have further questions or concerns or want to give us a shout out to us for more information, hit us up at our email for info@eduscape.com. You can also check out any more further events or postings that we may have going to our Eduscape website at eduscape.com/events. We also have an Eduscape educators community. You can ask for permission to join. You can ask if you are on Facebook and would like to join our educators community to continue this great conversation that you've had today. You can use that link that you see on the screen to do so. I do want to answer one last question. Oh, someone did. I do want to share with what Jan Matthew said. Brain Pop right now is free. It is usually a paid for the school and has limited free videos, but there is an ENL section of BrainPop that actually can help teach English. And I did check this out. And if you can access that, it is free. They can bring you through different modules and learn about nouns, prepositions, and go through building that student's comprehension in English. Also, checking out the World Book Online is free as well. You may want to see also, again, what content is already available for you from your school. So thank you, Jan, for sharing that with us. I'm going to add one last time into the chat before we do leave that link some of you were asking for again. That is the link that brings us to just the few sites and integrations that we did mention throughout this presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, email us at info@eduscape. And please fill out the survey that will be sent out to you after this webinar. Okay, thank you everyone.